Strange world. When I was in elementary school, I was playing soccer with my friends as usual and had a strange experience. I was playing soccer with my friends as usual when I was in elementary school, and I had a weird experience. I hit the back of my head on the ground like a banana peel. I felt like a star was about to pop out of my head like in a cartoon, but my vision went blank and my consciousness was blown away before the pain. And here's where it gets weird. I woke up in a strange place, and none of my friends that I had just been playing with were there. It felt like less than a few dozen seconds after I fell, but when I looked closer I saw that the sky was tinted with the color of a sunset, so I realized that hours had passed, and I hurried home. Maybe I had passed out, but even so, I thought I would get mad at my friends the next time I saw them, for leaving me unconscious. But as I was walking around the city from an unknown place, I could tell that this was a place I didn't know, because there were buildings everywhere that I couldn't remember. The place where I lived was a city, but the place where I'm now is more like a rural town than a city, and all the houses look old-fashioned. Showa chic. It's like a downtown that's a generation older. At the time, I only had a vague idea that such a place existed nearby, so I wandered around observing the townscape, partly out of curiosity. I thought there was at least a police box somewhere. However, there was something that bothered me. I didn't see any people or cars. I looked in all directions, but no one was there, and there was no sign of driving or living noise. As soon as I realized this, I began to feel strangely uneasy, and my steps to look for the police box naturally became quicker. How is it possible that there is a building but no one is there? Hey! Somebody! I tried yelling for help, but there was no response. I was about to give up, wondering if there was really no one there, when I saw a figure at the end of the road. The first villagers were found, and I was in the very best of moods. I immediately called out to him and asked him where we were, and if possible, to tell me how to get home or where the police box was located. With that in mind, I ran toward the figure. "Excuse me." I called out, raised my hands, and ran toward the figure, but then I noticed something was wrong. Even as I approached the figure, the shadow of the figure didn't lighten up at all. I don't know how to describe it, but it was as if the person's body was reflected in a very dark reflection, as if he was in the shade. Not the color of the skin, but the very existence itself looks dark. I stopped a few meters from the person. I felt as if I should not talk to that person. Just as I thought that, the person turned to me and opened his mouth with an inorganic expression like a no mask on his face. "What's wrong?" He used a very suspicious language. He must have been in his 60s. Except for his general gloominess, he seemed like the kind of man you would see anywhere, but the emotionless expression on his face made me stiffen as if I had just met a ghost. I was so nervous that I was so tense that I started to think of myself as a ghost. As I was tense and stiff, the man who called himself Uncle started to speak on his own and leaped forward to take my arm. At that moment, I was cutting back and running away faster than the uncle's hand could snatch mine. Even as I did so, I heard the uncle say something from behind me, but I selflessly kept my distance from him. I wondered if there was anyone else who looked decent. As I ran through the town, I saw a rural landscape spreading out in one corner of the town, so I ran through in that direction. I saw a figure standing in one of the rice paddies, so I ran toward it. For a moment, I feared it was a scarecrow, but as I got closer, I realized it was an old man with a bent back. I called out to him with a sigh. I stopped outside the rice field, kneeling down to catch my breath, and the old man approached me. I waited for the old man to come and asked him where the police box was. As I waited for the old man to come, I noticed that he had a sickle in his hand. I had a bad feeling about it, though it was not unnatural because he was working on a farm. My instincts were telling me to run away, so much so that I can say with certainty that there has never been a day when my sixth sense has worked as it has today. It's a rarity. I got up and started running when the old man slowly raised his scythe. Up close, the old man was as dark as if he were in the shade. And like the old man, he had an eerie look on his face, as if he had a no mask stuck on his face. As I was running along, looking around to see if there were any decent people in this town, I noticed a store that looked like a town corner tobacco shop that I used to see in the Showa era. Behind the half-open window sat an old woman, and I ran toward her. I hoped that this time she would be a decent person, but when I got close enough to catch her face with my naked eye, I saw that her face was as lifeless as a no mask. What is going on in this town? I thought there were no people, but everyone I meet looks alike, as if they are wearing no masks, and yet they all seem dark, as if they are in the shade. Could it be a dream? I can clearly feel my breathlessness and my pulsating heartbeat, but I begin to suspect that this is a real dream world. Because I've been playing earlier, and it doesn't make sense that I'm in this ridiculous town. As I was thinking about this, the sunset sky was falling further and finally fading into night. For some reason, I felt the need to get out of this town before it got completely dark, so I checked the main street from the alley. I didn't even know how to get out of this dream, so I could only wander along the streets, making sure no one was around. As I was wandering around aimlessly, I suddenly heard a chime. The sound alone was enough to scare me out of my wanderings, but the chime signaled that the whole town had suddenly become noisy, so I hid in an alley and peeked down the main street to see a group of black people moving along the main street, wondering where they had been hiding. The strange thing was that the sun had already set, but there were no lights on in the town. This made the people in the town, which had looked dark to begin with, look even darker. I could still see that they all had the same masked faces, so I kept my breath still so that they wouldn't see me. By the time the chime had finished ringing, the group had left for some place. I sat in the shadows of some house's wall, wistfully hoping that this dream would wake up at any moment. I'm hungry. And it's as chilly as reality. I began to cry because I missed my parents so much. It was at that moment that I said to myself, "What's wrong, me? What's wrong, me?" I suddenly heard a voice call out to me. When I looked up, I saw a woman with a serious look on her face peeking over the wall at me. Oh my God! I immediately ran away. Does everyone in this town have that no face? Or were they simply wearing no masks? I don't know, but to me, an elementary school student at the time, their no masked faces were the very essence of fear, and I ran away crying. I ran out onto the main street, where I saw a few no masked people standing around. I ran away, crying, "Come here. It'll be easier. Come on, come on, come on." They all reached out their hands to me. Of course, I screamed and ran away, but the evening had changed, and everywhere I went in the town at night, there were people with no masks walking around. There were no streetlights, so I bumped into some of them, but they would say things like, "Where are you from?" I wanted to go home to my parents as soon as possible. As I was running with this wish, a divine radiance appeared at the end of the road, in the area where I was running toward. At first glance, the glow resembled the sunlight of sunrise, and I ran toward it with all my might. Again, my sixth sense seemed to be telling me to run toward that light. Just before I touched the light, a low voice whispered to me from behind, "It could have been so much easier." I was horrified for a moment, but a moment after I was about to turn around, my vision was enveloped in a complete blankness and my consciousness faded away. "Oh, I'm going to die," I thought just before I lost consciousness, but I felt like I woke up rather quickly. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in a hospital room. A nurse had just come in to clean the room. She was pressing the nurse's call as if she was surprised to see my eyes open. A male doctor came in and did a bunch of tests, but I heard him talking to the nurses only that there was nothing wrong with me, and I don't really remember the whole conversation because I was still in a daze at the time. The time was about 7 p.m., just past visiting hours, when my parents flew in to get word that I had regained consciousness. They said a lot of things to me at once, but I was able to ignore most of them. They told me that I hadn't woken up for about 3 days, and when I blurted out, Well, I was playing soccer, my mother told me, that was 3 days ago. According to my friend who was playing soccer with me, I slipped on the ball and hit my head on the asphalt while we were playing soccer. When my friends saw me lose consciousness, they called an ambulance for help from adults nearby, and here I am in the hospital. Fortunately, I was not hit that hard, so they were able to treat the trauma with only a few stitches, but there was no sign of me regaining consciousness, so they did a detailed examination. But there was no sign of me regaining consciousness, so they performed a number of tests. Since there was still nothing wrong with me, my doctor said that he would refer me to a university hospital in the worst-case scenario. I heard that such a thing had happened while I was sleeping. After I woke up, a thorough examination was conducted again just to be sure, but no abnormalities were found, so I was discharged from the hospital a few days later. Of course, I was told to call the hospital immediately if I felt dizzy or had any other physical problems after returning to my daily life, but I was in such good health that I had never had anything but a cold for months or even years, so I have never had to go to the hospital since then. In the end, I believe that what I experienced while I was unconscious at that time was just a dream, but I still remember the real atmosphere I felt at that time. Who were the inhabitants of that dream world? Why did they all look dark as if they were in the shade? What were those faces that looked as if they were covered with no masks? I could not understand everything, but I thought that a dream is just a dream after all, and there may be no point in thinking about it. However, thinking back, I realized that I may have been on the verge of death at the time. If I had followed the residents, I might not be alive today. I think that's what the residents meant when they said, "It's going to be easy." Well, it was such a strange experience. This is the end of this story. Thank you for listening to the end.